locale,
Locale.
Shock
Local.
cambiamento,
تغيير
جيرجلكتر
chakula ijayo.
local,
Food. Change.
we
We are.
are. Welcome to the Slow Food Youth Network podcast.
Locale.
Shock
Local.
Cambiamento,
تغيير
جيرجلكتر
Chakula
Keep staring at the black square.
Yeah. Is it working? Is it working?
Ah, there we go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Spin podcast. My name is Valentina Gritti. I'm your host and I'm the Global Community and Project Manager of the Slow Food Youth Network. And this is a very, very special series of the Spin podcast because we are live recording at Terra Madre, which is the biggest event of slow food. And I'm also co-hosting with Dan Saladino, who is a producer at the BBC for the food program and is also author of the book Eating to Extinction.
Hello again, and welcome back to the golden container, shipping container. We're inside, cozy space in which we are telling stories from Terra Madre.
And today it's the second episode, and I'm here with Bella Gil, who came directly from Brazil to visit Terra Madre. So welcome, Bella.
Thank you, Valentina. Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. And so Bella, she studied at the University of Gastronomic Sciences, where I also studied. So it's also nice to see alumni of the same
colleague.
Yes, exactly. And you also have a background in nutrition, in Ayurvedic nutrition, in macrobiotics, and you're also a chef. So you have a really different perspective on the food system. And we're really, really curious to get to know you more and to get to know how you think our food choices affect the food system and how they can be a tool also for food system regeneration.
Sure. Okay.
Big subject, but I think you have lots of answers.
Well, yeah, it's very broad, right? But I believe that to start, I do believe that we can change the world through food. I even talked a little bit about it yesterday because, society and humanity has been shaped by food for thousands of years, and I really believe that if we change the way we produce food, the way we distribute and consume, we can change the world for better or for worse, depending on food. It's an amazing tool. Food can be a tool for transformation, and lack of food can be a manipulative tool also for the worst. And I see that happening in Brazil now, for example. We had many years back, more than a decade back, we had a government who emphasized hunger as a priority to end hunger, fight hunger. And after a few years, Brazil got out of the world food map of the UN, of FAO. So it was a priority, as a geographer from Brazil. He wrote many great books, and he says that hunger, it's not a technical problem, it's a political problem. So it's up to us. We grow food to feed the world. We can feed more than 10 billion people. We are not even 8 billion people right now. So people are going hungry because it's a political choice, to make people be hungry because it's a manipulative tool. I really believe that. And I was saying, okay, I gave Brazil's example, so let me finish that. Because so now, today, we have it's the end of 4 years of government that really used hunger as a tool to manipulate people, because Brazil got back into the world food map. And not only that, but and after the pandemic and everything, now we have like 15% of the population in a like starvation,
Food
in
insecure.
hunger, like severe
Really?
hunger.
Yeah.
Food insecurity, it's like 54% of the population
Wow.
now.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. Like people, more than half of Brazilian population don't know what they're gonna eat tomorrow.
Wow.
That's really bad,
Yeah.
So
Scary.
yeah, so that's what I think. Like that's the power of food, in my perspective. It's really
And I think the reason why this topic today, Valentina, is going to be so interesting, because in episode 1 we were talking about climate change and all these crises around the world, and in some ways it can leave you feeling powerless.
Sure.
That change cannot happen, and yet
it's too big of a problem
Yeah.
that sometimes we feel very vulnerable and not able to act, right?
Yeah, but in a way, it means that those local decisions, individual decisions, really do matter now. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. And I believe that us here, we know the impact of our food choices. Like we know what's good, what's bad, what it's better for us as an individual, what it's better for the environment, what it's better for the collective, for the society. So I believe that we can take that responsibility and choose well what to eat. But as I was saying yesterday too, it's really hard to put this responsibility in an individual who doesn't have the choice, As Michael Pollan says, eating is a political act, but it's only a political act if if you have the opportunity to choose what to eat, right? Like voting with your fork. Yes, if I can choose what I'm gonna vote for, it's if I have the tool for that, that's great. But most people don't. So I do believe in the individual power, but I'm working on making it possible for everyone to feel this power,
And at the same time, you've seen this political shift in Brazil, because am I
Yes.
right in thinking that a decade or more ago, there was a policy that, for example, public procurement, schools had to source a significant proportion of food from local farmers?
Yes, that was in São Paulo from the Haddad. He was the mayor of São Paulo, and he did that, and it was amazing. Yeah. No, Brazil has like great laws. The problem is who's running now. But as you're saying, like coming back to the climate change thing, I believe that this movement of youth. And like young people caring about the climate and the environment and everything, that's great. And if they can relate climate change to the food system, it's a win-win game, like, and that's what I try to contribute also, like to make people, like it's not only, how can I say, like the energy industry or the transportation system that impact the climate change. If they know that 35% of the greenhouse gases comes from the food system, comes from agriculture, from livestock and all that, and if we can change that, we can really mitigate climate change. Because, for example, you have because the food system today depends on monocultures, like, soy, corn, cane, sugar. It's like all about monoculture, and especially to make animal feed. Like Brazil, we have a territory of German in soy inside of Brazil. It's crazy. It's the area of German of soy in Brazil. It's like really bad. So if we take that, like that's really bad for the environment. It provides, to be able to do that, you have to deforest. So I mean, you deforest, you deplete the soil, you poison the soil. It's really, really a bad thing and emit a lot of carbon and greenhouse gases. So if we shift and if we change that for example, agroforestry system, you not only don't emit carbon, but you sequester, you keep the carbon in the soil. You take it from the atmosphere and you put it back in the soil, you know, so you can really revert that. You can make the atmosphere cooler, you know, you can take carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back in the soil where it belongs, you know.
But again, it feels like these are such big structural issues of
It is.
government politics, of trade deals between Brazil and Asia in terms of soy distribution and economics. We're individuals, and in a sense, we feel so often powerless.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also wanted to ask you, so since you are, I mean, you are an influencer, like a lot of people follow you on social media, a lot of people can see you also on television. So how, like, first of all, like, who is your target and how can you actually empower people who have the tools to choose, to actually make the correct choices?
Yeah, so I believe that knowledge is very important. So what I started to do on TV was, as you said, I host a culinary show, but I use the food as an entertainment tool, let's say, to be able to, as a vehicle, to talk about deeper subjects, you know, because people love to watch people cooking on TV. It's
Everywhere in the world.
I think so, right? In Italy too, right?
So once you've got them,
Yes. And then, okay, so, oh, she's making this great dish, but what is she saying? Like, you know, and I talk about, you know, things that I believe it's important for people to know, like to be able to, I mean, just the passage of knowledge, because I believe that knowledge is it's very important for us to be able to choose better, you know. So yeah, I believe that individual. So that's what I do. Like it's a one thing, you know. I'm here. I'm doing what I love, what I know, and I'm trying to share with people this kind of knowledge. For example, what can be done in the kitchen to have a more, let's say, sustainable life in your own, you know, home, in your own world. If you eat like less meat, especially in Brazil and in the Western society, I believe, that's great. And my TV show, it's totally it's mostly vegetarian, you know, and vegan. So that's one thing. Like people, oh, this can taste good. Okay, so I'm gonna try that. You know, cooking with uh, the ingredient as a whole, like trying to not to waste too much. I have a series that, and it turned into a book that it's called From the Root to the Flower, because I cook with the whole ingredient. For example, everybody knows watermelon, but sometimes like most of the time, people don't know what to do with the peel of the watermelon. So it's great. You can make a lot of dishes with that. Like I have meatless meatball made with the banana peel. So things that, you know, seeds and peels and parts of the ingredient that you can use to make a great dish, you know, that's great. That's to encourage people to have like now I don't know if I know the name in English, like a compost box, like a compost site, you know, at home with like worms, you know, that it's so people, because I believe also that in the recent years we think that we thought we were taught actually that it's very important to know where the food is coming from. Like, you know, to know from whom you are buying from and all that. And that's really great. I mean, that's amazing. And now I'm like, okay, we know that that's good and people are doing that and that's great. So now let's think about where the food is going to, you know, because especially in Brazil, in Europe, I don't believe that's like a big issue. But in Brazil, for example, the food waste goes into, you know, a big pile of trash, and it's there emitting a lot of greenhouse gases, methane, which is like 34 times stronger than carbon, for example, worst for the environment. And if we had like a compost site in all cities, in all, how can I say, like neighborhoods, I mean, that's like people, the mentality is, okay, I have this banana peel and I'm not gonna eat it. I'm putting it in the trash. That's bad. It's not trash. It's food for the soil, you know? I have to, it's like recycling food.
Yeah. How do you weave this into a cooking program?
How?
Yeah.
So, for example, in the program, I have like it's in a house, and I'm not only cooking, but like I go to the garden and I take some parsley and I talk a little bit about like gardening and yeah, and then I come back to the kitchen. And then after, okay, so I have some food scraps and I take it to the compost bin, you know, and I talk about it. Oh, you know that doing that is the, so that's what I do.
But is there any tension? I'm just curious, as somebody who makes radio programs, is there any tension between you and the production team, the broadcaster, saying, "Oh, that's too much politics today.
Oh,
Get back
yes.
to the food."
Yes. Oh, yeah. There is. It is. Yeah. You went into like the right spot. You know, that's that's the
tension.
biggest
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Actually. Because I mean, that's the thing. The food industry, who has money, like the big corporations and the big,
And possibly the people who are advertising on the
it's
network.
yeah, they are paying for it, you know,
Yeah.
and so like but I mean, I try to be political in that, but I there's some things that I can't. How can I say? I can't not do. Like I have to talk about that.
Yeah.
I
It has to
yeah.
be subtle as well. I presume.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But
even-
yeah, there's a little bit of pressure, especially now. Like and especially because in Brazil we have the biggest one of the biggest channels has, and the biggest advertiser is the agro, which is like the agribusiness industry. They have this slogan like agro is what is the agro is pop, agro is something, agro is everything. Like it's really something that it stays in a
message that
it's a
yeah.
message, yeah, like that. And having like my TV show going kind of against that, it was a
It's a
problem.
big deal. Yeah.
It
yeah.
is.
And a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
how can I do that without saying exactly this, but trying to like, you know, transmit this message? It's like very subtle sometimes. Yeah. But
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah. But it's a great question because that's the
Behind the scenes.
yeah, behind the scenes, but it's really a problem, and people have to understand that, like how because that's what I was saying also yesterday. I really believe that we live in a corporative dictatorship where like the big food corporations, they dictate how, when, how much we're gonna eat. You know, they have this power. We've lost as people, as individual, as the collective, and as nations. We've lost our food sovereignty. Like now, it's really hard for small farmers to choose how they're gonna conduct their agriculture system. You know, sometimes they, not sometimes, like most of the times, they are hooked by, you know, the seed companies, and they, yeah, they get into this vicious cycle of, okay, so I'm getting the seed, but I have to buy the whole package of, like, you know, fertilizers and pesticides and all that, and then they cannot go back into, like, you know, planting traditional great seeds that they used to to do, and that's a big issue also. Like, we are losing a lot of traditional seeds, you know, traditional ways of cultivating food. And also I'm trying to, I don't know how to say, like, to show people that,
Yeah.
and the importance of that.
Are there, what are the spaces left in Brazil to tell the story and make a difference? I'm just wondering, is it at a community level? You know, are there movements, organizations?
I believe that as a collective, we can do a lot as a community. For example, in Brazil, we have one of the biggest peasant movement, let's say, which is the landless movement of Brazil, and they fight for the right of land, you know, and that's really big. and and I believe that if people understand their what they are fighting for and the importance of that, if they have the support of civil society, you know, we can really press, you know, the Congress, we can press the government to make political changes, you know, public policies, to change public policies. Because one of the biggest problems today, because I talk a lot about, like, okay, so let's democratize healthy food, because food, the right of food in Brazil is a right, it's in the constitution, you know, it's like as the right for health is the right for education. The state should provide that, as it provides the universal health system, as education, public education. Food, it's also a right for the Brazilian citizen. So to be able to provide that, like, food for everybody, to democratize healthy food, we have to understand where food comes from, which is from the land. I mean, it's from the soil. Like, we have to have soil, we have to have land to be able to grow food. And if we, Brazil is one of the countries that has the highest land concentration. Like, most of the land, the big, like 2/3 of the lands, it's in the hands of like 1% of the population. It's really concentrated. It's terrible. So, saying that, how can we democratize the access of food if we don't democratize the access to land? So we really need a huge, like a severe land reform. That's the root of the problem, you know? But to get into that as an individual, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's really important to support those movements, you know, for example, the landless movement of Brazil. It's very important. You as an individual, what you can do? You can support them, you know? You can talk to them. You can spread their word. You know, you can support when they go in front of the Congress to fight and to request for changes. You know, so that's. It seems like, oh, okay, and I'm doing nothing, but we are. You know, it's a way.
Well, we had a story yesterday, didn't we, Valentina, which was from Finland, Snow Challenge, which started off as a student project almost, that then became a community campaign against the extraction of peat. In the context of climate change, they campaigned and they campaigned and they campaigned, and it was picked up by the media, the press, and it led to a mining company stepping back and changing its practices. So from small beginnings,
Yes.
you can exert a big
Exactly,
influence. Yeah.
but it's a small beginning. It is a small beginning, but when it's a collective thing, when there are like a lot of small people, you know, doing that, it becomes huge.
Yeah.
You know, so
But in that case, the media dimension is really important. I'm just wondering, in
Yes.
Brazil, we talked about television, but is the rest of the media, are they engaged in these big food and land issues? And are they fulfilling their responsibility as journalists in telling these stories?
no, the mainstream, no. Oh no. If that's the thing. They've made actually a really bad job for the movement of landless people in Brazil for like in the past 20 years. Like all the how can I say the images and the messages they were spreading was like, oh, they are invaders, they are killer, like, you know, they invade the land of, like, you know, private land, and they kill people, and it was like really, really bad. And it's not like, that's not the story. That, of course, there are bad people everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, if there's one case, that's what they put in the headline, like, you know, a headline, and that's what's going in front of the
public,
the journal,
Yeah.
the front page, you know. And what they are really doing, I mean, this movement is growing, is the biggest producer of organic rice in Latin America. It's like a lot, you know. They produce a lot. They occupied the land. It's not like occupying just for occupying, like it's occupying to produce good food, you know. That's the goal, you know. And but as you perfectly like stated, the mainstream media really, it's not supporting, and it's doing actually a bad job.
Yeah. But I guess also, as you said, that also you don't have like a total freedom of saying whatever you want, like in your TV program. I guess also journalists, they are not really free to write what they want to. I don't know if like they risk their life also like in other countries, but I'm thinking, for example, in Mexico, no, like if they write something also against the government or against maybe some corporations, they really risk their life, they disappear. I don't know if that's the case also in
It's
Brazil.
true, yeah. In Brazil, we are I don't know if we are the first or the second, but we are in the top 3 countries that most kills activists. Like the people who fight for human rights and the environmental rights, and Brazil loves to kill activists.
I was looking at this because in researching my book, and there was a story that didn't make it into Eating to Extinction, but will, I think, in the second one. So I was looking at what was unfolding in the Cerrado and the Kalunga community as well, and there were, again, just these stories of the encroachment of big cultivation into, you know, really rich, biodiverse areas. And I was coming across these shocking stories of activists being killed, and you could only really find it on obscure relatively obscure websites of campaign organizations.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much mainstream coverage
Yes.
of this. So it clearly is. I mean, people are literally putting their lives on the line
Mm-hmm.
to challenge, the spread of these monocultures into biodiverse parts of Brazil.
Yes, yes, it's true. And if you're not killed, I mean, you're not taken seriously, you know. I'm in that. I thank God I'm in that part, you know. Like people really discredit you if you talk about, like, if you try to talk about the truth, like the reality. What's the problem with monoculture? Let's talk about it. Like I love to discuss about that, even with people who doesn't agree with me. But let's discuss and don't discredit me. You know, don't. I mean, I value your work. I respect your work. Respect mine too. Let's have like a adult conversation. You know, don't just tell me that I don't know anything, that I don't study, that I don't research, that I do all that. You know, I'm not talking from my out of my mind. You know, like I really know what I'm talking about. But people love to say, "Oh, she's not even a."
You're not,
Like a
not
producer,
an,
as a
yeah.
producer, you know,
But,
how come
or
she
an
can
academic or
or
a
an
scientist
yes.
and this came up in our conversation yesterday. Is it becoming more difficult because of what's happening in the global food system? COVID recovery, war in Ukraine, tightening of supply chains, world leaders talking about we need food security. We have there's no luxury left in talking about better, more sustainable ways of producing food. Is that impacting on the conversation in Brazil?
Well, it's impacting in the pocket of Brazilians because the food price went up a lot. Like nowadays, a kilo of carrots, it's now like 15 reais. It's
And
really crazy.
what was it before?
Like 7.
Doubled.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That must shape the conversation and also the communication the politicians have with the public about where do we take farming and food in Brazil.
Yes, exactly. Because they are very proud of like, okay, we are the biggest soy exporter, the agribusiness industry supports the economy of Brazil. Like it's because of the agribusiness that we have, that we are in like, we have a great GDP, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They say that our GDP depends on the agribusiness. And I mean,
don't rock the boat. Yeah, don't rock the boat because this is Brazil's future economy.
Exactly. But how come you can be proud of like exporting a lot of food? I mean, not even food, it's like animal feed.
Yeah.
How come you can be proud of that if people in your own country, it's going hungry?
Yeah, and who is benefiting from that?
From that.
That agro wealth that's coming in.
Exactly. It's like bankers and big farmers.
So that's a big story to be able to try and get across.
Yes.
Who benefits?
Yeah.
Who is winning from this food system?
Exactly. And I say, at what cost? Like, okay, you want to be proud of Brazil's GDP. Okay, we are we have a good rank of, in the economy rank. Because that for me, it's really like I get very pissed with that because I really cannot understand. But so yeah, people are very proud of that. Okay, the agribusiness is important for the GDP and all that. But at what cost? There's a lot of blood into that. There's a lot of deforestation. There's a lot of, as you're saying about the Kalunga and everything, to grow, it's like growing more and more soy, more and more corn, more and more cattle. But to do that, you have like people now, like it's really deforesting the Amazon and invading the territory of these people.
If
like
people
they
are in the way, then they
Exactly, so
they
that's
have
why
to get out of the way.
exactly. So coming back to one of the first questions on like how as an individual we can change the system. I talk a lot about biodiversity too. Like we have one of the best ways to conserve biodiversity is by eating biodiversity, right? Like if we, because the slow food has an amazing work with the arc of taste, and I all the time I go into that and I tell people, you know, you love pitanga. Pitanga, it's like a small berry. It's so great. It's one of my favorite fruits. It's going extinct. You know, like I say, you like pitanga. You want your granddaughter to be able to know the taste of pitanga. You should start eating it. You know, you should start
Conservation through consumption.
through consumption. Exactly. And that's really tricks people mind. Like people say, how come? And talking about that, one of the best ways also to keep the forest alive, to keep the forest up, it's by eating things from the forest, you know, because if, like, I have a restaurant as well in São Paulo, and I buy a lot of food from indigenous communities in the Amazon. For example, the babaçu flour is something that I use a lot in my restaurant. This flour comes from like a coconut, like a small coconut, that people in their territory, this community, they go out, they collect that, and they bring back, they process, like they go into the forest really, like, and collect, bring back, process, and sell it. They're there doing what they love, collecting what they love, doing what they used to do for, you know, thousands of years. They are collectors, you know, how can I say? Yeah, collectors. So Brazil nut, babaçu, açaí, other seeds and spices and many things that we can really buy from these communities to support them, to give them the opportunity to stay where they are. And being there, they protect the forest because, I mean, they're not killing trees and like they're just collecting what the forest is giving us and prevent these big farmers to,
And not only
plant soy.
Yeah,
You know?
and not only that, it's obviously there are economic benefits for the community. But I remember I visited, is it Gusto in La Paz in Bolivia?
Okay.
And they were, we went up into the Andes and we went into the part of the Amazon. And it wasn't just that the communities could continue living as in that place, and they had some economic benefit from the foraging, and the story was being told in the city. So people, through the ingredients, through the restaurant, were hearing the stories of the communities and understanding about the biodiversity in their country that was important and precious.
Yes.
So again, storytelling and communication.
Yes, exactly. That's what I try to do too in the TV show. So I cook a lot with those kind of ingredients, and I say this comes from this community, and I try to share the story. And also at the restaurant, for example, the rice and beans that I have in the restaurant comes from the landless movement in Brazil. And it's like, it's very, some people have really like preconceived ideas of the movement that sometimes like people sit down there. Oh, so what's the dish of the day? Oh, it's the feijoada with the beans from the landless movement. People just get up and go out. Like, I'm not supporting them.
Wow.
I'm not,
It's that polarized.
Yes,
Goodness.
it is. So that's it's so crazy.
So you don't even get to tell the story because
Exactly.
it walks out of the
No,
restaurant.
no. Yeah.
It's stronger.
Yeah,
Yeah. But so we have talked about like different perspective on how our behavior can have an impact on the food system from an individual level, how governments can influence that. But for example, in the case of food industries, big food industries, do you believe that they can also be promoters of a sustainable transition?
That's a great question. Well, I sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I want to believe that yes, because big changes need like big players, you know, too. Like if a big player, if a big company of the food industry changes, that's a huge change, you know, it impacts a lot. But as we, I mean, in the past few years, I was like, I see much more of greenwashing than real change, you know? So I'm like, not,
Again.
yeah, okay, and like, I thought this time it would be something really different, but I believe that first, like the root of the problem is actually our economy system, right? Because if we still keep food as a commodity, I don't believe nothing's gonna change. You know, I was talking about food waste with a friend, and because she has this, she wants to, she believes that ending food waste can help end hunger. You know, and I was like, okay, so try to explain me what food waste has to do with hunger. Like nothing. In this system, nothing. Because as I was saying, we have more than enough food to feed the world. And we have people like 800 people going hungry today. That's not the problem. It's not the problem of lack of food. It's the problem of lack of purchase power. People are in poverty. They don't have the money to buy the food. That's the problem. So it's not food waste. It's poverty. That's the problem, you know? So if we keep this economic system where, another example, I think it was in 2018, a small farmer, producer of potato, it was like an image that went kind of viral, and people were like, oh my god, how come he did that? So he dumped a trunk of potatoes in the road, and people was like, oh my god, that's like he's insane, and it was really like being aggressive with the producer. And I was like, but you know why he did that? So when he planted the potato, the market price was something, let's say 10 reais the kilo, I'm supposing. And when he harvested the potato, the price went down. So he wasn't able to get the potato from his farm to the market because he wasn't paying. He was already in debt. You know, for him was better to dump the potato than he would spend more money to bring the potato to the market than dumping the potato. So who's setting the price of the potato? It's not him. That's like he lost food sovereignty. He, as a farmer, cannot say how much he's gonna charge for the potato. Is the I forgot the name. Like the Wall Street, the
traders or
the traders. You know.
Yeah.
Now food as a commodity is being traded in Wall Street, you know?
Without anyone touching the food, it's just being moved as a commodity on computer screens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah, I think that's such a fascinating question about can big companies change? and what might be the pressures from consumers. Can I just throw into that one idea here is that science, unpicking the complexity of food. For example, there are berries and fruits within the Amazon that might have or do have 10 times the amount of vitamin C or other vitamins than kind of conventional. And the more we learn about our relationship with food and our own health and emerging science such as the gut microbiome and all of these things, do you think that message will be picked up by consumers, by individuals who care about these things, and those who can decide and those who do have the budgets to make a decision will become influential in saying to the food industry, for selfish reasons, my own health, I know I need different food now?
Oh yeah, but that's happening.
Yeah.
That's happening. You have like a big food industry that really makes crap for those who cannot pay for good food, and makes like amazing healthy food for those who can pay. Like they're not losing market.
So they can have, but
they can have
the
both.
industry can have both.
Yeah, but they have to keep crap for those who's gonna, because that's the mass. That's what really make them lucrative, like to profit.
Yeah.
You know,
But then again,
they make profit from
but
that.
what about the economics of that? Because if you're the government and you're seeing your health budgets and the consequences of diabetes in the population, a less productive workforce, if you were to use kind of brute economic arguments, there are more reasons for people to get food right. And
True, yeah, like the way we eat, it's killing us, right? It's not, I mean,
and it's
eating,
expensive.
yes,
in
eating
the long-
badly,
yeah,
it's killing more than the lack of food, you know? Because nowadays, 70% of the deaths worldwide, it comes from non-communicable chronic diseases like diabetes, cancer, obesity, and all that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're totally right. If we think on about it on a very, let's say, materialistic perspective, people are dying. You're losing the workforce. Like you're losing efficiency. You're losing productivity. I mean, let's do something. But the thing is that the government doesn't see health as profitable as disease. Disease is more profitable.
And if you have 4 or 5 year electoral cycles, they're dealing with that. They're not thinking about 20 years' time. What's the Brazilian population going to be? What shape is the Brazilian population going to be in? They're thinking about the next election. So,
yes.
yeah.
No. Yes. That's true. But that's the thing. Health is not lucrative. It's not profitable. Like it's really. I mean, imagine like the biggest like food industry companies, and I'm talking like in a broad spectrum, like from the seed companies to the pesticide companies to the pharmaceutical companies, and like I mean, they are doing that. They are selling us the food. They are making us sick, and they are selling us the medicine. You know, I mean, it's very lucrative. That's the.
We need to find a way of finishing on a positive note.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Oh my God,
No.
I'm sorry.
And so what can we as individuals be doing? Help us here.
Exactly.
Well, I think that, for example, simple things like cooking, sharing food, eating together, like simple things like that really brings us joy, you know, and and trying to be more positive and in a more happy mode. I really believe that's makes me really happy. Like food can really bring people together. So let's bring back the commensality. I don't know if there's this word in English.
Conviviality.
Conviviality, and I think it's conviviality.
That makes sense.
Through food, you know, share food with people, sit down, eat, have time for that, you know, which is really hard. And it's another thing that I'm trying to fight for, you know, the right to have the time to cook.
Yeah.
Because that's also
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
But so, and also I believe that we are not only what we are, we are not only what we eat, because people say you are what you eat, but I really believe that we think what we eat, you know, the way we think. The way we eat influences the way we think.
Yeah.
So let's eat, you know, clean, fresh, homemade, you know, with love, with affection, foods, because that's really can change our mind, you know. If we just eating crap, I mean, our will think.
And
crap
here
too.
the macrobiotics and Ayurveda are coming.
Exactly, yes. I still have this root, you know, like I really believe into that. So I have this more holistic and spiritual, and it keeps me, you know, wanting to continue the path of the fight.
All of these things are connected.
It
They are
is,
all
yeah.
connected. It's part of the
Yeah.
whole. And the mistake that we've made for too long, or humans have made for too long, is to put food here and then agriculture here
Yes.
and economics
Yes,
here.
And
So
us
it's great
here
that
and
you're-
nature
yeah,
there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So your
That's-
approach is, I think, the best one. So.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, really. And I hope that you are going to enjoy the next days here in Terra Madre.
Yeah.
And
Have great food.
yeah, for sure. Great food and great food for thought.
For the mind.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Melagil, for being here. Thank you, Dan Saladino, for co-hosting
Thank you.
this episode.
Fascinating. Thank you.
And so tomorrow morning we have the last episode of the Spin podcast at Terra Madre. It's gonna begin at 10:30. So if you guys want to watch us live, you can connect in the early morning with a cup of coffee. And tomorrow we're gonna discuss about how we can achieve food regeneration in cities, with an example from Mexico City and from Kathmandu.
Wow.
So also really
Great.
international. And follow us on the Spin podcast and see you soon. Thank you again.